So there's no stronger statement of council priorities than the budget, so I'm glad we're weighing in on this, and this is a very important document, so I'm glad we're taking some time for it. I guess my concern is with the overall spending in the operating budget, and right now, I got the note from the manager that the total budget, operating budget is not yet known because of things are still being determined. But I guess that's my concern, that for the last 10 years, we've averaged a 6% increase in the operating budget, while our cost of living over the last 10 years, and nationally at least, is 2%. So we've been, I think, increasing spending, and I would like to see if we could maybe approach the budget by approaching our operating budget with some reductions. You also let us know that a 1% increase in property tax will generate approximately $260,000. And if you look at one of the previous year's numbers, $115 million is one of our operating budgets from a couple years ago. Even a 0.5%, not 1%, but even a 0.5% reduction in that is $500,000. And so I'm thinking, can we not lower the operating budget even a 0.5%? I think that if you look down at our operating budget guidelines, page 11, there are a couple things that I think are very interesting in E and F. E is the balance between services and burden, and that we have to consider the ability of citizens to pay. And last year, we've increased the franchise fee not just to 4% to cover our legal expenses, but all the way up to 5%, so we maximized. We've got other things that you mentioned. We've got, so even though we maximized the franchise fee and we've offloaded these overhead costs to the enterprise funds, we're still adding to basic living expenses, water, sewer, natural gas, electricity. So I think letter E, we could think about, knowing what it says there, that we could look at operating costs. And then letter F says, to the extent possible, maintain level of services. Well, I think this is an extraordinary year. We've had a couple of them. And so I think if the council would give leeway to staff, it says right there in letter F that they could, what we sometimes refer to value engineering of services, where we might, this would really enhance our mission statement. Dubuque City government is financially sound and is providing services with citizens getting value for their tax dollar. I think that's a great thing, and I think most of the time we've been doing that, but I think we need to reposition and really hone in on that.
The citizens' cost of living has definitely increased. You've got individuals with fixed incomes that I've heard of having their health care go up, higher utilities, and obviously the higher taxes that are associated with the increasing values of their home going up as well. So there was some serious concern with citizens in regards to being able to stay up with that. Because when they look at their benefits from the government, those aren't going up for them. That they're not really getting any additional disposable income to try to cover some of these expenses. And I feel it's causing them some hardship in regards to being able to make tough decisions as far as, do I pay for my prescription this next month, or do I pay for more food to put on the table? I think it's really getting to that point for them. And when you're looking at the percent increases plus the user fees that are also going to be tack on top of these, I think it would be more prudent for us to look at possibly ways to reduce our operating expenses and maybe look at how we can maybe either delay or cut some of those things, which I know comes later in this process, rather than passing some of this burden back onto the taxpayers. So obviously with other council approval, I think it would be great if we could look at some of these percentages and possibly lower those and try to offset those costs, or task the city manager's office to perhaps go back and look at other ways that we could try to offset some of those costs without passing the entire burden back onto the taxpayers.
To think that I live in a low-cost, high-value city for a lot of reasons, and our job is to try and maintain both pieces of that, high value to the citizen and a low cost for that value. I think we've done that in a number of ways. I think that this set of guidelines includes maintaining some staff reductions that we're not comfortable to make. I think that the same pressures that impact households impact cities. And I certainly understand when someone has limited resources that the costs of government go up, but the government's cost of government goes up as well. Cities are where the rubber hits the road for Joe taxpayer. Cities are who you depend on the most for the things that are closest to you in government, and we do a great job of providing most of those things. Now, we're going to spend just about every extra minute over the next month and a half, 2 months, until we arrive at the final budget hearing in March, after 6 lengthy evenings here, looking at departmental budgets incrementally, piece by piece, and we're going to have to come up with a decision of where we land. And that's a very open process, although it's been a pretty empty room for a lot of those for a lot of years. But it's certainly open to the public, and we'd like to see people here to tell us what they think about those budgets, or at least to absorb the information and understand the glimpse into those departments that we get. So I don't know where the right place to land is, but I don't think that we got to where we are today or to where this recommendation is today irresponsibly or arbitrarily or capriciously. In fact, we've done a good job of increasing the value of living in Dubuque for every property tax payer.